Yeah, hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the 26th version, to this 26th Virtual Cloud Systems Summit. Today we will talk about one specific product in our backup solution for Oracle databases, so the Recovery Appliance or ZDLRA, as you probably may know that. Before we start with our guests, before we start with the show, as usual, a very short view on the next planned sessions we have for the Virtual Cloud Systems Summit. It's on the 27th of October, and we are so proud to welcome Ashish Ray there, and he will give an update on all engineered systems, especially on the Exadata. Really looking forward to that part, and yeah, you can invite. There are still slots open as we do a Zoom session. Okay, and with that, a short run through the sessions we had in the past. So you see here number 1 until 7. You can all download this material in the on-demand session of the invite link. So if you want to have a look into it, on the next foil, you see especially the number 8 that is highly recommended, and this is done and performed by our partner Aniki and Dennis Axler from Aniki. He is a specialist on the product, and he presented a lot of technical details that you will probably know or like to know when you operate a recovery appliance. So that is a very cool one, and you should see it if you haven't seen it before. Okay, on the next one you see the number 13 to 19, and again you get all the foils from this today, and you can have a detailed look into it. Yeah, and the last one is on the version from last week. Interesting, we were talking with Erti Bedilli and Dirk Augustin. They shared their ideas and their recommendations on operating an ExaCC environment, so real live news. So if you really want to know some background on how Exadata Cloud@Customer is performing, I strongly recommend that you will have a look into number 25. So, but now it's a pleasure for me to welcome our guests, Timothy Chien and Jony Safi. Hello, how are you?
Hey Ralph, doing
Good.
well.
Good to have you here. People know you, especially from the DOAC events, but this is some time ago due to Corona, and we're really looking forward that we will do the show again in Nuremberg, and I hope you will then enjoy again a car ride from Nuremberg to Frankfurt or something, and get some tears in your eyes, right? So maybe introduce yourself. Who will start? Timothy, maybe you, and say a little bit about you and what your role is for those who don't know you.
Sure, thanks Ralph. So Tim Chen, Senior Director of Product Management with the Backup Recovery Technologies Group here at Oracle. So my area is everything backup. That is RMAN, that is Zero Data Loss Recovery Appliance, Secure Backup, our whole portfolio for this area.
Okay, good. Jony?
Yeah, Jony Safi. I work on the MAA team. I'm a senior manager in MAA development, and our team deals with the Exadata best practices, ZDLRA best practices, and all the HA products from on-premise to the cloud, DataGuard, Golden Gate, and so on.
Okay. MAA, I think it's an important thing around the engineered system space. So maybe we should do a special edition on MAA as well, because I think recovery appliance is a very important part in that overall strategy in the architecture. So that's very nice. Okay, yeah, thank you for the introduction, and I think the stage is yours now, because I don't want to spend too much time for the intro and leave all the space. So, show is yours. Have fun.
All right. Yes, thanks Ralph. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We have quite a bit of content to share with you and updates. And so I'm going to start off with just kind of a very short overview, and then our latest hardware release, that is the X9M. So Zero Data Loss Recovery Appliance, we'll call Recovery Appliance for short here, has been in the market for the last 5 years. It has been deployed across the globe, across all these various verticals. We like to say it's over 2,000 plus petabytes of protected databases. And we say that because of the customer uses and the deployments that we see across the world. So it's quite broad. And of course, the Recovery Appliance has these very unique data protection innovations for the Oracle database. Again, of course, zero data loss, which is about protecting the transaction of the database in real time. Best database recovery in terms of validating the backups, restoring to any point in time. And then we'll talk a little bit more about ransomware recovery use cases as well here. Incremental forever and offloading all backup processes, obviously very critical for an enterprise backup strategy so that you can really let your production systems do the work. But it's most critical to do. That is your application and production workloads, not backups. And the last part is about scaling out. So that is being able to roll out this system in a very scale out as your needs grow, as your databases increase. The same kind of deployment you did at day one also holds in day 100 or day 200, right? You can continue to add systems and connect them together. So we also have cloud tier, which we'll talk about later too, which is a very interesting extension of our system. So you can actually have backups managed in the cloud storage itself in Oracle. So as a quick overview, you can see the Recovery Appliance is sort of the centerpiece of your enterprise database protection environments for all supported databases today. That is 12C to 21C on any supported platform. Could be Exadata, it could be Sparks, Solaris, Linux, any supported platform of the database, right? And all these databases are sending their transactions I mentioned in real time. And so this is protecting all anything going on, any updates, anything going on in the database with 0 to sub-second data loss. We also have incremental forever, which is the ability to take a full backup on day one and then just incremental backups thereafter. And this is really, really efficient, right? So it's a huge benefit for offloading your production backup processing here. And these backups that you take in incremental forever, they become virtual full backups like you'll see here. So on day one, you'll see that we have a normal full backup. And then every day after there's an incremental, and the system generates a virtual full, which is essentially a metadata representation of a physical full backup as of that time. So with just taking a backup of the changes since the yesterday's changes of the database, you get a full backup that can be restored, can be used for any purposes like you do with Recovery Manager today on your database. Now, the system also allows you, as I mentioned, to offload and off-tier these backups. So you can actually replicate them to another system. We call it a replicated appliance. This is also near real time. So all the incremental backups or the redo, that all goes through into the replicated appliance. And that is typically a disaster recovery site, right, that you have for a second copy of your data. You can also tier the backups to cloud storage, and that is the OCI public cloud storage. So you can have these backups offsite with its own retention, it's encrypted, and be able to be restored and recovered at any time, right, as an additional protection. You can also have this on-premise, so you can have a second copy for longer-term retention in a on-premise ZFS or on-premises tape in this way as well. And of course, the entire ecosystem for the backups is protected with our validation of the data. That means that every block in every redo, a block in every data file, in every incremental that's taken, we are checking that for consistency. If the block is physically consistent, it can be restored as part of a real database recovery. That all the files are complete, so you're not missing anything or gaps of archive logs, for example, to do recovery. All that is being done at every step of this backup lifecycle, from the beginning of backup to the storage that you take for the incremental forever, to the replica, to the cloud, to the tape or ZFS. This is all validated in real time. Then Enterprise Manager manages the system in terms of recoverability metrics, health of the system, making sure that your databases are protected as you expect. And so we can gather all these statistics and all these metrics simply by recording and tracking these backups on each of our systems. And we translate that into Oracle database recovery, which is a big differentiator versus file-based or file system-based backup protection products in the market. Now, X9M, we've done some great things here with X9M, both on the hardware side and the software side. From the hardware perspective, we've increased capacity of a recovery appliance rack, and we do this with every generation, right? This is our 9th generation, and so we have additional 30% capacity in a single rack, and we do that with 18 terabyte drives now. This is an industry first for the backup appliance market is this 18 TB drive. So really leading the way in terms of even disk technology these days. And a base rack, which is our starting configuration of 3 storage servers, now supports over 200 terabytes of physical backup capacity. This system can achieve 15 terabyte per hour for restore rate. And this is over our 25 gig network is available. So you can have either 10 or 25 gig as well. Each storage server adds 70 TB of additional capacity, and we have a full rack, which is 18 storage servers, the max filled rack, if you will, supporting over 1 petabyte of usable capacity. So you do have quite a bit of room to grow from the beginning, from a starting point into a fully configured system. With a full rack, you have up to 13 petabytes of effective backups. And we talk about effective backups because our system is really incremental forever and not a traditional, weekly full backup and base schedule. So we get quite a bit of efficiencies, and because we can accelerate the time it takes to create a full, this really helps our storage utilization and our overall performance as well. And a full rack can support 24 TB an hour restore rate. We've actually seen customers do even more than that in different environments. So that's just a, if you will, conservative number that we publish for this full rack system. As you can see, we start with a base rack, and as we add more servers, we can increase the storage. You also increase the bandwidth, right, for restores from 15 to 24 into a full rack, into a half rack, and then into a full rack, as you see here. And then as you can connect, as I said, systems together to form a larger kind of pool of systems, this gives you over 22 petabytes of usable capacity, over 400 terabytes per hour. That's a huge number, and of course, probably no one here has that particular requirement. But what we like to say is that our technology is very scale out, and this is really because of the underlying engineered system technology. We utilize Exadata based hardware and compute and storage, and so all the interconnect, all these things coming together benefits recovery appliance too, with every generation. We've also reduced the pricing of the base rack. So this is a change for us. We're doing this to remain competitive in the market, and so we've reduced it by half to $150K US dollars. And if we do a very quick comparison of this system now with a purpose-built backup appliance in the market, right? You can see that as we just do a typical cost comparison, with recovery appliance, you can get something like 50 to 80% lower dollars per protected terabyte here. Because of the efficiencies we get with Incremental Forever, because of the this new price change that was done, and just all the other efficiencies and compression, everything that you get in the system, it's quite a bit compelling proposition here, right? To have the system, for the smallest of customers, that our system is perfectly suitable and you can grow with your needs. Okay. We also done some outside research with IDC, in fact, confirming this particular business value, and we've actually interviewed customers anonymously for this. And as you can see, that they've resulted in 6-month payback of the system with initial purchase, 4 or 5x faster backup recovery, and achieving 100% their RTO and RPO levels in their businesses. So quite an interesting report. When the slides are shared, we'll also pass this link on, so you can kind of take a more deep look at these customer use cases and their comments, right, on the experiences. All right. So now we'll move to feature update, and I'll pass it over to Jony to go through this.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. So Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's always very good to be with our German audience, even though we are virtual this year. But hopefully we can be together next year in person. So, how many of you want to hear about the new features? Maybe I can see some hands being raised. Maybe? Nobody raised their hands yet.
Okay.
One, 2, 3. Well, okay, we're getting some hands. Okay, that's good, Okay, so we have a bunch of new features that you guys are going to be very interested in, and some of you also contributed in logging enhancement requests for us to improve on the product, because at the end of the day, a product is improved, it gets to its maturity because of you, the customer. We can build nice products, we can build very shiny products, but the use case is the customer who defines for us, and that's how we improve. So, long-term retention is something very, very important and high demand by customers for several reasons. Compliance and regulations, security, and so on and so forth. So, the Recovery Appliance has the ability to offer an archival to the cloud, to the Oracle cloud, to the Oracle OCI, and all the backup will flow in an encrypted fashion, and the policies are managed by the ZDLRA. The backup is stored in our object storage in the cloud. And this will help not just for the long-term retention, but also if you want to migrate to the cloud as well. So if you are migrating to our cloud, you can also have your backups already seated in our clouds, and you can leverage those. And obviously, cost-wise, it's very competitive, and it's integrated in our cloud as well. Next, please. So, a new feature. We provided now with the ZFS storage appliance an on-premise OCI storage tier. So, an existing or new ZFS appliance can be used as a local object storage where the long-term retention backups can be stored on, and it will behave like an OCI, like an object store in OCI, but locally.
Okay.
This is from the long-term retention part. Now, one big enhancement and one big feature that came in is that the so-called backup and recover anywhere. In previous versions of the ZDLRA, we have introduced what we call the high availability and disaster recovery policy that was built on my Oracle support notes and configurable manually by the customer. What we did, we put this inside the product now, and what ended up happening is that we have a very smart database-aware synchronization between two or more ZDLRAs, and we call them pairs now. So we have a small change in the naming conventions, like between upstream and downstream. Now we have pairs, we call them pairs. So basically, Data Center 1 will send its local backups to its ZDLRA, and it can recover from its own ZDLRA. Data Center 2 can do the same for its own ZDLRA. There is a replication, synchronization between Data Center 1 and Data Center 2 at the ZDLRA level. So basically what happens if, in case of an outage, Data Center 1 can connect to Data Center 2 ZDLRA and vice versa to provide backup and consume the restore from either or ZDLRAs. This is very important from a business continuity perspective. And now this is transparent for the user. You have only to make sure that the database wallet contains the credentials for both ZDL arrays, and you can back up and restore from either arrays. So no other solution today can offer you this. You can have solutions that will do disk mirroring across Metro and WANs, but that's not database aware. This is all database aware. The same metadata of a database is in either ZDL arrays to ensure the recoverability to the last point in time of the backup that it received. This is something very important from the features. Next is an important feature as well, which is the smart incremental. It is, you already know about the incremental forever strategy for the ZDL array. Now we introduce what we call the smart incremental. What does the smart incremental do? The smart incremental is that the ZDL array is reached by RMAN. The database communicates with the ZDL array via the RMAN client, which uses the library to talk to the ZDL array. Now, if for any reason the ZDL array determines that we need to create, or it needs to ask for additional blocks, like I need a full backup of a given data file, it will instruct RMAN, which will take it from the database side. That means you do not have to touch manually and say backup full database or a data file. You don't need to do that. The appliance will go back to RMAN and say, hey, fetch me this data file. I want to take a full backup for it. Why this is important? This is very important because it eliminates the human intervention, obviously. And by eliminating the human intervention, we also eliminate any accidents that can happen. And most importantly, with all the customers now and the industry adopting TDE for their databases, it doesn't need to, it preserves the incremental forever when you do key rotation. So if there is a key rotation happening or a new key that has been implemented, it automatically issues a level 0. So you don't need to intervene. This is very important for to go along with all the new features that are adopted by the customers. The archive log grouping, the name says all. We are grouping the archive logs that are on the ZDL array in a bundle to send them to tape. And that bundle has a specific number of archive logs. Why we do that? We want to reduce time to copy, for the copy operations to tape. And we want also to do smart work. We want to minimize the network round trip and the contention on the devices. So what we did is, conventionally, originally we used to have 1-by-1 copy, and it's not very performant when you have thousands of archive logs to copy. So each stream will take one file to copy. Now, we are coming with a grouping. So we are grouping up to 64 logs per stream. That's obviously more efficient when you bundle the files in one big bundle rather than sending them in single streams, which is going to be consuming the low bandwidth and not performant and taking time. So this is very important for the long-term retention and for security and compliance. This is the archive log grouping. Now, what I call also the winning combination or the perfect combo, Exadata and Exadata Cloud at Custom. So you all pretty much have heard about the Exadata Cloud at Customer, and Exadata Recovery Appliance. It's all from our engineered system family. And why Exadata and Recovery Appliance is a winning combo? Because you get the best of class, the best of breed of engineered systems that provides you the security, protection, high availability platforms. Exadata, no need to say how important it is and how many customers in the world use Exadata. Exadata runs most of the business critical databases in the world, and the Recovery Appliance in conjunction with Exadata will offer the world's best database protection for these environments. And Exadata and ZDLRA together, this combo can meet most of the strictest actually SLAs for any organization, from a performance, obviously with Exadata, from HA with the ZDLRA. Now, the combination of both is ideal for cloud scale, because Exadata is meant to be a consolidation platform, and Exadata Cloud at Customer is a cloud at customer, along with the ZDLRA as well. The value, the winning value, and the benefit for the customer is still there. So you are working on a standard deployment, and you have a standard backup configuration across the enterprise. It's the same development organization that builds both, and the same hardware on ZDLRA that ships with Exadata. This Exadata image that runs on ZDLRA is the same that runs from the Exadata. Obviously, ZDLRA has, in addition to ZDLRA software, but these two products, they come from the same organization, which means all the best practices have been jointly agreed on and written by both development teams. Now, Exadata on-premise or in a subscription model in the cloud, all the models, all the cloud offerings, they use the same highly secure and highly performant Exadata hardware. If you have an on-premise Exadata, or you have a cloud at customer, or you have a cloud service, you will be able to get a flexible subscription model. You pretty much know about that. You have the cloud automation in the cloud at customer and in the cloud service, which is what we also call the tooling. You have a unified control plane where you have your UI, the user interface that drives your operations. The cloud, you get the cloud security and all the hardening that comes with these offerings as well. And with the cloud at customer, Oracle manages your infrastructure from patching and from monitoring of the what we call the DOM zeros and everything that is infrastructure-wise. Now, the Exadata Cloud at Customer in your data center, it's cloud in your premises. If you don't want to move to public cloud, you want to have, or you don't have an Oracle data center that is nearby, or you want for several reasons to keep your data under your jurisdiction in your own premises, that's cloud at customer. The benefit of your cloud without moving from your premises. Now, the cloud service is Exadata in our cloud as well. So it's in our public cloud and our public data centers. So you have the three flavors of Exadata according to what fits your need. Now, obviously, why both? Always the question comes in. And by the way, if you want to ask us questions after, and we can point you to several links, the references, the customers that are public references of Exadata and ZDLRAs, they are numerous, and especially in Europe and in Germany as well. So obviously, for a database consolidation, you want to leverage the best-in-class platform that provides the highest availability possible with the performance as well. And for this, you want also to be to backup and restore and maintain your SLAs. So this model of Oracle managed and subscription is where we are, pretty much the world is heading, to modernize their operating model, to modernize their OpEx, to change a bit the game, to improve on their OpEx and get as the maximum from their ROI, from the return on investment. So the top drivers, again, to continue this is that from a Exadata Cloud@Customer, you are using the ZDLRA, you will benefit from the incremental forever. You have the real-time redo log shipping and an end-to-end backup validation. We validate your backup. The normal, everything, all the features of the ZDLRA applies in the context of Cloud@Customer. Everything is still the same. The ZDLRA is just a destination for the ExaCC. And you will benefit from a high throughput network that is provided in conjunction for this configuration. And furthermore, you can, as well, as we mentioned earlier, this backup can also be sent off-site in a copy to cloud archival for off-site and secure storage. And this is very cost effective for your operations, and you can restore on your Exadata cloud service in OCI if you have a tenancy there. You can see that an end-to-end is all engineered systems. It all has the same high availability, security hardening across from A to Z. And obviously, if you want to leverage a local object storage, like we mentioned earlier with the ZFS appliance, you can definitely do that from the local ZDLRA that is deserving your Cloud@Customer. I will give it back now to Tim.
Okay. Yep. Hey, Jony, do you want to cover the last one here?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So speaking about the integration, we have out of the box your user interface support for the configuration of the backups when you have a recovery appliance with Exadata Cloud@Customer. This is a screenshot from our user interface. So basically, for those who knows the recovery appliance, you already the enrollment is 2 phases. You add the database on the recovery appliance, and then you come in on the user interface, and you'll say, "Oh, okay, now I'm gonna use my a recovery appliance as a backup destination," and you will provide the credentials. The database name is already taken part during the wizard, and you click on create the database. This will invoke the automation in the back, the cloud automation that will register the database for you. And as you already said, okay, I'm going to enable the automatic backups. We'll schedule the backups, and we're going to be taking backups for this database periodically. Obviously, backup is one thing, restore is everything. So we also, the restore is incorporated in the user interface. It offers the restore to latest, which is the last backup, or last bit that we received, or that is already received. You can choose time or SCN if you want to.
Okay.
So Tim, this is for you. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jony, for that. So let's continue on this ExaCC recovery appliance journey and talk a bit about the subscription model. Now, you know, ExaCC has this great OpEx kind of model where you pay every month for usage and so forth. Recovery Appliance is available too in the subscription model. So we don't have a Recovery Appliance Cloud customer offering yet, but you can finance this Recovery Appliance in a similar model. So what this allows you to do is align the payments and your usage of the system with the Cloud customer finance model as well. And so we just rolled out this program early this year. We've seen customers ask, for a better purchase model to be able to have this also available in a sort of month-to-month payment. That's available in North America and Western Europe. And as I said, you can contact your sales rep for more information. So basically, this takes the traditional, the left, the CapEx payment for a recovery appliance and spreads those payments over the 24 months, similar to how you would pay for Exadata Cloud customer for its usage. So essentially just allows you to spread out those payments, and it's a right to use acquisition model. So, as a traditional model that the customer owns the recovery appliance, and the RTU model, it's Oracle who owns it, and you're making payments, right, for usage every month. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit now about Exadata security, and then we'll talk about ransomware protection, which is top of mind, as many of you know today. But let's talk a bit about Exadata security first, because this is kind of where we start with a engineer system environment. The production infrastructure, the database has to be well secured to begin with. So let's start there. In Exadata, we've done quite a bit of optimizations around security. Exadata, the install has 700 packages. You can see that it has, from a standard Linux distribution, 700 packages versus over 5,000 packages with a standard Linux installation. So we've actually reduced the amount of RPMs and that have to run on the system, thereby removing the surface attack, if you will, for any kind of malicious activity or anything like that. So we tried to simplify the installation to the smallest degree. Exadata uses a microkernel that removes anything not needed for enterprise data management. So our kernels actually used on Exadata is quite smaller than a standard Linux kernel as well. So again, trying to reduce the amount of places on the system that can be infiltrated. Now, each individual Exadata storage cell is protected by an individual firewall. We call that the cell wall. You can actually find more information about this in the documentation. This is actually very innovative and really unique in our system, because it's an engineered system, but the compute and storage are architected by the same group, right? And so there are very highly beneficial things that can be done, even for security, so that traffic and access and so forth cannot cross the boundary, right, between compute and storage here. Now, the focus of Exadata from a security standpoint for access is, list a few examples here. Unnecessary insecure services such as FTP and Telnet are disabled, so that just general open access to the system as a Linux box is disallowed. The latest Exadata server release also allows you to configure ACLs on HTTPS and RESTful services. So, in fact, allows you to whitelist, if you will, connections coming into the system based on your IP. And the OEDA for Exadata enforces password complexity and aging out of the box. So we make sure that when the system is installed, all the best practices and everything that is recommended for securing the system is done up front, and that we cover all those in the checklist in OEDA. Hardening aspects here. Exadata is STIG certified, and this is actually considered the most stringent security automation protocol in the industry. It's used by the Department of Defense here in the United States. It's used by other government agencies around the world. So this STIG certification is a big deal for us, and we've had this for a number of years already. Right? There's a dedicated team at Oracle that works on ensuring that any vulnerabilities, CVEs are included in every Exadata release. So this market changes dynamically, right? The attacks, the fixes on the Linux side, the remediations that are done, those need to always be kept up to date. And so we do have a team that works on ensuring that the Exadata install is aligned with whatever is current in the market. Now, the storage server where your data resides have memory protection keys as well to make it tamper-proof. So not only do we protect between compute and storage, in the storage server itself, we have detection to know if data has actually been maligned or changed. There's keys that are only specifically usable by access from the compute, right? Any kind of malicious activity into the storage server, if it gets through this network access, would be barred because of these keys that would not recognize the incoming access and traffic. Now, for Exadata Cloud Customer and ExaCC, there's additional security benefits. We have transparent data encryption enabled by default in both these services. TD is your foundation for database security, bar none. The data can be attacked or can be taken, but if the users don't have the keys, that data is useless, right? There's nothing interesting they can do with it. So we always recommend TD, and that's become basically the default for Cloud Customer and Cloud Service. There's a fully hardened control plane with our cloud services, and this is sort of the management, if you will, infrastructure for these systems. It's regularly tested for vulnerabilities and breaches to make sure that attacks cannot happen through this access point as well, in addition to obviously the system directly. We have an operations team that monitors these systems 24/7 with the infrastructure that's patched monthly. It's handled by Oracle, making sure you have latest and greatest for security vulnerabilities. We also have operator access control for Cloud Customer. This gives the customer even more flexibility in allowing when Oracle should get on the box to do its work, to do its patching and so forth. So this gives them very fine-grained access for prevention, detection, and responsiveness to any kind of access to the system. So this is obviously very sensitive area, especially for on-premise customers with a lot of critical security requirements that they don't just let anyone from Oracle come in. They have to have very specific gates that have to be checked, and then the access is allowed. And then when the access is done, they have to close that gate. So this gives the customer on-premise with Exadata Cloud Customer that ability. And we also have Data Safe, which is available for free to our cloud service customers and Cloud Customer as well. Okay, so let's get into ransomware protection and talk a little bit how Recovery Appliance really addresses this very important problem right today in our industry. So we don't need to go over all this. We know that ransomware attack news has just been headlines. There's a lot of, the bottom line is a lot of there's all the revenue at stake. There is fines and fees at stake. You can see that multi-millions of dollars, both in lost revenue, but also in remediating these issues is quite expensive too. Average total cost of remediating is almost $2 million from our latest source here. So it's definitely a big problem, and databases obviously are prime candidates for that attack because of its very critical role it plays in the enterprise. So I want to kind of take you through how ransomware goes through your environment, and this is the context by which we'll talk about in Recovery Appliance. So as you know, we know that ransomware starts innocently. That you have email, you have fake software upgrade alerts, any kind of like normal behavior that can be spoofed, if you will, gives the hackers an entry point into your environments. And so the first thing that customers should ask if they're looking at a holistic protection solution for this kind of attack is what processes and steps are in place, and are they being followed, right, in terms of access to the box. The next level of attack goes into data. So once they get on the box, they try to get all kind of credentials and privileges to then log in and do additional damage to your environments. So that's also very, obviously a very serious kind of lateral movement, if you will, as we get into the data access. From the data access, we then go into the actual underlying storage, which is typically the next level attack where the hackers try to manipulate and publish data for extortion purposes. And so if you look at this area, once it gets to the data part, the question for the customer should be, what are your backup and patch strategies, and are they being successfully executed? You know, your backup is your last level of defense, and that has to be available for recovery, right, at any time. And it also cannot be attacked itself. Your backups cannot be part of this lateral movement of these attacks and also being compromised. So for ransomware to succeed, it has to actually flow through this entire life cycle. With the production, the backups are affected, and forces the customer to pay the ransom, right? And this is why it's so serious, because the news is customers paying ransoms, and that's evidence that their backups, the last layer of defense, isn't reliable, isn't isn't performant. If it can't be recovered in time, is unknown. Sometimes recovery status is unknown, so they've never really tested their backups, right? It's extremely serious problem here. So can we recover? And so let's take a look at this now with the recovery appliance and our Oracle technologies layered on top. So in this same kind of picture, recovery appliance has built-in functionality, right? We just talked about the overview to really ensure protection of the system. Transactional data protection, backup validation to detect any malicious activity on our backups, and then this resiliency to the cyber attacks with the system itself, right? We talked about how Exadata is secured and all these capabilities. That is the same technology and foundation that recovery appliance gets as well. Cell wall kind of blockage between compute and storage, all the disallowed access to the box, all this kind of thing internal is done by recovery appliance. We also support, and we'll talk a little more, which is the Cyber Vault. And this is actually a recovery appliance, just like you know today, but it's deployed in a separate physical location. This allows you to have a copy of your backups that is physically divorced from the production copy. So this prevents lateral movements or any kind of attacks from coming from production into your vault copy, right? So people are probably familiar with bunker and having tapes shipped to bunkers and so forth. It's now the 21st century, right? And now we have cyber vaults. And so it's a very similar kind of concept where you're keeping your backup safe in a isolated location, network disconnected. TDE is, as I mentioned, the foundation for protection of the data itself so that it cannot be used for extortion purposes. And we also have Audit Vault and Database Firewall, which allows you, the DBA, to track traffic, SQL statements and so forth that are coming into the database to see if there's any anomalies in activities or any kind of issues going on with what you expect in terms of transactional workloads. And then on the user account side, privileges and roles can be verified in an automated fashion. DBSAT is a great tool to run to ensure that, from the database to the server to the storage, that you do have all these accounts set up properly. Right? So these are all kind of prevention on the database side, prevention and detection. But again, your goal is to not pay that ransom. And so it really starts with recovery, in this case, recovery appliance. So recovery appliance, as I mentioned, can be set up in the Cyber Vault. It's kind of a new use case, if you will, that we see customers using. And when you look at kind of this general workflow, it's very similar to what you saw before, where you have data from all databases. It's encrypted with TDE. TDE data doesn't affect, by the way, recovery appliance functionality. There's one specific change that is the space consumption. When you have when you have TDE backups, those cannot be compressed on storage because they're scrambled data. So just in general, the actual recovery appliance side compression won't take effect, but you'll still get the incremental forever, and you'll still get the real-time protection, as I mentioned before, right? So fast recovery with zero data loss, ultra scalable compute and storage architecture. And so in the vault, you have this air gap backups now, and these backups are a replication target. If you remember from the overview, we have a replication network and a management setup where you can control replication for any group of databases in a protection policy. So replication and all the system works on a database by database level. So when you configure replication from the production to the cyber vault, the network is actually a normal network to recovery appliance, but there's a firewall or some kind of a switch in between, as you see here, which the vault administrator can close and at their own discretion. So the recovery appliance will pause replication when the firewall is closed and track any existing replicated backups that need to continue, right? Backups that are queued, if you will, for replication. And when the firewall goes open, the administrator can then resume that replication. Again, incremental forever, and the backups get synced up on the cyber vault side. Your virtual fulls get created, zero data loss continues, et cetera. So this operation can be coordinated between these admin for the recovery appliance and the network admin. We like to actually position this because this gives you separation of duty as well between the users. So you're not having one person in charge of the entire access to the box, right? This also applies to database administrators. So database administrators have no access to recovery appliance in the production environment, nor access to the cyber vault. They can only back up and restore their databases. Similarly, with the recovery appliance administrator, they don't have access to the databases, right? They don't have access to running SQL, to backing up and restoring those databases. They only have access to manage retention for the backups, to add new databases to the system, et cetera. So it's very much confined, if you will, kind of security model for each of these users across these systems today. And then we have validation, of course, which checks all these backups from beginning to end, make sure they're recoverable, and then the enterprise manager. So even enterprise manager can be set up so that you have different domains. You have a domain for the production environment, and you have an enterprise manager domain for the vault appliance environment. So it's completely separate and two different users to be able to manage this. Okay, so let's wrap it up. What's next? We have some really interesting things going on our side, and just kind of speak briefly about them from a development standpoint. So cloud, cloud is a big focus for our company. Obviously, we are planning to introduce recovery appliance, OCI cloud service, and a cloud at customer model in the future. And so we know the demand is there. We know that customers are moving to Oracle Cloud with large volumes. So a recovery appliance in the cloud would offer the same benefits and the same user experience and so forth in this way. We also see recovery appliance cloud service being a DR sort of hybrid, if you will, solution, meaning you can have on-premise recovery appliance replicating to a cloud service recovery appliance. And now you have all the great features, and you now have an offsite copy that is being validated, that can be restored, can be cloned, backups can be cloned to create new cloud databases very quickly, et cetera. So it's definitely a big movement for us, and hope to be able to speak more on this in the near future. We will do more security work as well. We're working on features for immutability of the backups on the storage. Big topic these days. We have to prove to your auditors and compliance team that the backups cannot be deleted by anyone. So once you set a backup as being immutable, any normal means will not work, right? And this is to the level of having an auditor come in and also a third party do this. And so we're working on this capability to further provide sort of protection of the backups. Expanded user model as well for this, so that you have an admin today for recovery appliance. In the future, you'll have you'll have an admin. Well, today you have an admin and a system user root. In the future, you'll just have an admin user with just the public API access, with no other root access or any kind of system access to the recovery appliance internal database, et cetera. So it's very much a least privilege model, even within the recovery appliance itself. And then we're also going to increase disk capacity and faster connectivity, just like we do with prior generations. We always try to innovate with the latest technologies and components for backup usage. So in summary, this system provides superior data protection value, right? We talked about, we have new X9M system that's out, 30% increased capacity, 50% lower entry rack price. Exadata and Recovery Appliance is a winning combo. You have the best-in-class database platform, protection solution, integration with Exadata Cloud at Customer through configuration and through management of the two systems. And you also now have a unified subscription model with Recovery Appliance, right to use, along with ExaCC subscription. And then finally, we talked about security, right? That's really the big topic and a lot of the news making today. These ransomware attacks are epidemic. They demand resilient recovery measures. And so the traditional backups and the traditional protection really fall short these days, as we see, with the amount of ransoms being paid by customers. And so data security, integrity, and availability are all critical here. And we truly believe that Recovery Appliance offers these modern protection capabilities, and that's also only possible through deep integration with the Oracle database. So I'll pass it to Ralph now.
Yes, thank you very much. Vielen Dank, as it's on the foil here. Timothy and Jony, so that was very interesting. I think we got a lot of insights, a lot of details, a lot of first-hand news. I really like that. For the moment, I would like to check the Q&A session. There's one question in. Timothy, can you read through that? It's about the new smart incremental features, and I think in general it's about where do we find more information about that? Is there any, let's say, white paper or something like that we can share?
Absolutely, yeah. Our current documentation set for Recovery Appliance explains this feature. It's actually not a feature you will tune or have to enable or disable. It's actually, by default, Recovery Manager, the RMN client, communicates with the Recovery Appliance. You just need to upgrade to the latest software release. And it doesn't also necessarily require X9M, by the way. It's a software release, so it can be used on older systems as well. And yeah, so we can forward that later. Well, actually, I'll provide it here in the chat. How about that?
Yeah, whatever. You can send it to me as well. So we will distribute it with the foils. So we will have one check. We send a PDF version of the foils, and we could send it with that way as well. Okay. Very cool. Cool. Don't see any other questions. So it's time for you now to raise a question if you have one. 1, 2, 3. So you have one foil still where you can think about questions. So we come to the next foil. The question is, what can we do for you from here now? That is usually the obvious. So if you're interested in a Recovery Appliance, if you like to learn more, I think the best contact point is to contact your sales representative. You probably know, and I hope you know. So cloud systems sales representative, so somebody with a hardware background, or of course one of our certified partners. So they are also a very reliable source on that one. And if you are lost, if you don't find somebody, just drop me an email and I will take you from there. So what we can do as first steps in Recovery Appliance situations, in pre-sale situations, what we usually do is we provide you in the first step with some more technical backgrounds. We have a lot of videos around it, so you can learn a bit and play a bit with the product. Our technical guys, the SCs, are more than happy to explain in detail how this Recovery Appliance works, and of course how that would fit into your today's infrastructure, because usually you have an infrastructure and you probably purchased just a year ago something, and we can provide a good guidance on how you can change things and how you can keep the investments from your past for probably other things and focus with the Recovery Appliance on the Oracle database. Of course, we can do live demos and you can have a kind of good look and feel on how that all will work. And I'm sure this machine really will help you to really, let's say, support regulatory requirements, business requirements that you may have, and where you are probably short on solution and you are in a risky statement or in a risky situation. So you will get an overall better and state-of-the-art solutions, and this is something what you really need. So still no questions. That brings me to the point where I will have a look on the next one. That is the our next show on the 27th of October with Ashish Ray, also around engineered system, but more general view, some more details on the future development. That is very nice. So for now, as we have no questions, I would like to thank you, Tim, and Jony, who was with a pretty abstract photos in it, but we all know how you will look like. For all the insights and for all the details. So that was very nice. Looking forward to see you again in person then, if it's in Nuremberg or in Frankfurt or in Munich or wherever we will run the next show. And warm thank you to Bojana Pistorius. She's doing a lot of planning and organization in the background, and she makes this show happen, and good that we have her here. Okay, so thank you very much. Goodbye, and stay safe and stay healthy, right? So that's what we want to see. Thank you very much. Bye.